I saw the best minds of my generation spitting their proud, rotting brains into 1-minute containers. Rusted bins curtailed by 240 characters. I saw the best hearts of my generation bared, bleeding and bruised in banal live streams. I saw the best lungs of my generation exploding with bile, force-fed until exploded, deflated, ejaculated fluid with the futility of masturbating their commodified egos. I saw the best stomachs of my generation, stuffed with congealed compromises, made at the sharp end of a gun, at the blunt end of a gun, at the auto-inviting gaping orifice of a gun's pregnant chamber. They stand in the blistering heat of impotence, drenched through by the soaking rain of impotence, swept unsteady from their feet by the bluster of murderous winds of impotence, the hardened shard ignorance hail of impotence, the icicle dagger cold of impotence, as extremes crowded in around, unevenly and unendingly, until their feet bled from standing between closing elevator doors, halted and held hostage by a single certainty: their imminent descent or ascent at the sharp end of a gun that's not a metaphor. They refuse to be kept out, but barricade the doors to their own entry, rejecting every seat at the table, resolved not to get ash on their clothes, and knowing implicitly whether they or the next, the back table must be burnt to the ground. Casting ballots for a passage on the Phoenix, knowing the lottery is 1,000,000 to 1 shot, but assured that the shot will come. Praying the praying will be preyed upon, and ensured salvation will come from the fire pit no matter which way the E's and A's land. They refuse to speak on the platform for fear and hope that the dais will be consumed and finally the dais unshackled from the machina, while seeing no logical endeavour that could pluck the innocent, tempting apple from the tree that our ancestors planted to sustain us at the blunt end of a gun that's not a metaphor. Praying their silent breath is enough to bring about the ripening and that it falls from the tree. Certain of gravity, but unsure the fruits of their labour have the necessary speed to outrun time's ravages as it rots on the branch. Their tongues swell with a desire for sugars not torn from plantations and purified by the putrefying processes of these satanic mills of Moloch. Their necks crane skyward, bared to the icy winds, seeing the all but inevitable noose yoking their fragile windpipes as a necessary gamble to let loose their full-throated screams from the deepest recess of eternity, compressed into the lining of the voids at the centre of their souls, only to have their vocal cords ripped to unfurl unwelcome silk parachutes that will deliver them softly into Moloch's luxurious net. That's not a metaphor. I've seen it happen. I've seen the sausage grinder and the monkeys who thought they'd only have to dance to the organ end up minced carcasses in their own gut, inside their own gut instincts turned inside out. I've seen the prophet's philosophies and the philosopher's prophecies made fodder for selling cheap quality hoodies to hide the shame of their emptied consciousness from their makers. I've seen healers and saviours forced to ferry fruitless foods through floodlit streets, reduced to avatars on glowing digitised atlases of their bondage, time fragmented and scattered about to be gathered like a scavenger hunt, watched by soon-to-be carcasses and overfed vultures. That isn't a metaphor. I've seen it happen. I saw it happen to the best minds of my generation, the best carpenters' hands with architects' eyes guided by an impossible love. Bound, made captives by public schoolboys in top hats and timeless attire that proudly proclaims a 200-year stagnation. The fearless, tied to railway lines whilst the ignorant fearful twiddle their moustaches. Steam gives way to gasoline dreams as they twiddle their moustaches, immobilised by the cancellation of growth on the altar of atomization. Steam gives way to gasoline, dreams gives way to bullets as they twiddle their moustaches. At the blunt end of a gun, the brave wait for their brains to be crusted under the railway carriage, a disparaged generation deafened by rumbling conversations that thunder down the rail line at the sharp end of a gun that twiddles its moustache. A sacrificed future crackles to silence on the airways, pushed out by high-frequency squabbling about the extremity of doing anything at all to prevent the progress towards uncontrollable weather in an impotent climate. We are those who were handed Pandora's open box as a charming present, but found nothing inside. That isn't a metaphor. I witnessed its absence. I witnessed a million knees, forced to fold under the necessity to save their backs from breaking, only to find themselves crushed upward by the weight of their submission. I have submitted. I've written ferocious words of love that froth at my mouth and spit when I speak, only to find myself wanting of my words. I've broken regrets like pull cues across my skull, drawing brain fluid away from the aspirations I know I should fuel with the electricity that so many organisms took such care to steal from the sun. I've rehearsed enough life in my mind to fill 1 trillion realities with better actions, only to find they outnumber 1 trillion to 1 the vulnerabilities that would have been needed to fill this one with infinite progress. I've seen tuna fish, canned until Leviathan sea monsters are just canned flakes for fat cats, dancing in unintelligible coordinations to tunes cursed by a uniformity that I thought alien to the rhythms of men. I have contorted my own conscience without second thought, like a magician hypnotized by his own fraudulence, until I snapped my own spine just to cram it in a gift box where the only prize was the foul yellow teeth of a saw sent to rend my body in two. I've shut my eyes to so much suffering. My apathy has grafted sunspots behind my eyelids, so blinding that eyes wide open, I can no longer discern day from night. I have swallowed the seed of my own ignorance so many times that a tree grew in my stomach, just like my mother told me it would, and I found the pips so delicious I shoveled them down my gullible gullet without any regret, only to find the leaves drew so much nutrition from the blindness of my love, its branches shaded my heart. I have felt sick. I have felt powerless. I have felt so powerless, I have felt sick, and I have felt so sick I felt powerless to stop vomiting my own agency on the pavements of London and Glasgow and sift through the bile only to find nuggets of gold that I claimed as my passions. That isn't a metaphor. My hands are still slick with my sick. I've seen the best minds of my generation, torn through noses like elegant pharaohs still alive to hope in the vague promise of a glorious afterlife at the sharp end of a gun.